Welcome to Marin Voices and Views. With Lawrence A. Strick, I'm Peter B. Collins. Today we devote our program to the two candidates for County Supervisor in District 4. In the June primary, Dennis Rodoni placed first in a field of 8 candidates, and Dominic Grossi was a close second, just 214 votes behind. We're looking at a very competitive race to choose the replacement for retiring Supervisor Steve Kinsey, to be decided by voters on November 8th. And just a quick programming note, we want to thank our two guests for returning today. We actually did this show once, but due to a technical glitch, we're back to do it again. So thanks to both of you for cooperating and being understanding. Dominic Grossi is a fourth-generation Marin resident, a dairy farmer, small business owner. He's served on the board of MALT, the Marin Agricultural Land Trust, and has been president of the Marin County Farm Bureau and the Marin Sonoma Fair. Married with 2 kids, he lives in Novato. Welcome back, Dominic.
Glad to be back again. Thanks.
Great. And Dennis Rodoni is a contractor from Olema, has served on the North Marin Water District Board for 20 years. He's served on a range of boards and commissions, including the Golden Gate National Recreation Area and the Point Reyes National Seashore Association. A Marin native and former teacher, he's married with 2 kids, 2 grandkids. Back in 2004, Dennis ran against Steve Kinsey and got 36% of the vote. Dennis, good to see you.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming back, guys. So we're here at the election that's coming up in November. The voters have selected you 2 out of a field of 8. They got 2 Italian guys here from West Marin. And let's start talking a little bit about the Point Reyes National Seashore. There had been a long struggle at Drake's Bay Oyster Farm. Dominic, you supported the renewal of the lease. Dennis, you opposed it. Dominic, tell us what you were thinking, and then Dennis, please fill in what your thoughts were about that issue.
Well, there was a lot of aspects to that issue. You know, historically, Drake's Bay Oyster Company produces over 50% of the oysters throughout all of California. They provided 27 jobs, to many families that worked and lived in West Marin. They had that opportunity out there, so they've all lost their jobs and had to move elsewhere to try to find them. And the Lunnies spent a lot of money working on restoring Drake's Bay Oyster Company. When they took it over from the Johnson family, they had been given some verbal promises, by the previous superintendent, Don Newbacher. And if you fix it up, there's a good chance that we can renew the lease. And so they took that upon themselves to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix the place up again, because it was in somewhat of disrepair. And so for me, there was an opportunity here to keep something moving forward. They fixed the place up. Oysters provided, in my opinion, for the environment by cleaning the water and filtering the water. And they provided a great service to the many people here in Marin County, their employees, and as far as I'm concerned, the whole state. It was very important.
What's wrong with that, Dennis?
Nothing's wrong with that, but the issue really was very divisive, and having lived in that community the whole time that divisiveness was going on, it made me pause to actually get locally involved in it, because I knew that I personally had nothing to add to it, and I personally had no decision making in the process. At the end of the day, Secretary Salazar was authorized by Congress the Senate and Dianne Feinstein to come to West Marin, look at the issue, and decide what was appropriate. And I think for me it really was a lease issue. They had a choice of what to do with the lease. At the end of the day, Secretary Salazar decided not to renew the lease. And that was his decision, and as a rancher, I respected that. Not me as a rancher, since he was a rancher, I respected that. And also the best part of that day was, though, and it is the best part of that day for all of us, is that he offered the 20-year leases for the current ranchers in the park, which was an amazing benefit to them, because they can't do any business planning. They can't do any possible borrowing of money until they have a business plan in place. And how do you have a business plan without leases or very short leases? So to me, that was the best part of the day. Again, the Drake's Bay Oyster issue was very, very divisive, and I've been very, very cautious. I'm not going to use it for political reasons. I think some people are choosing to do that. It's unfortunate because it drags up all those old wounds. I'm trying to heal this community. I'm not trying to divide it.
Well, and we brought it up as background for this next question, which relates to the current and prospective future of ranching in West Marin. So there are environmentalists who want to allow those leases to expire and basically return the entire area to a natural state. Tell us your views about ranching in West Marin and what role the county, and in particular a supervisor, has in advocating for a particular position. And in this case, let's start with you.
Sure. So let me make the note that there's no local environmental groups that are supporting the lawsuit. The lawsuits are by a group of national environmental groups that mostly the local environmental groups disagree with them. So I think that's an important distinction. The rancher lawsuit is unfortunate because it stops the planning process that was going on. And I'm hoping that they get to a settlement situation where they have some talks and they come to a quick settlement, because for the most part, ranchers can't wait. The environmentalists and the attorneys involved, no disrespect, don't have a timetable for solving this, but the ranchers have a timetable and they need to get back to work, figure out what their ranch plans look like, borrow money if they need to. And so I hope that they get to settlement very quickly. I know the judge recently ordered them to get to some settlement talks, and I think that's very productive to do that, because I've heard on the outside that this could be an 8 to 10 year court battle, and no one in West Marin can withstand that in the ranching community. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it moves quickly and some talks are developed and settlement issues are brought to the table that both the ranchers, the county, and the park system can live with. My role as a supervisor certainly is to facilitate those kind of talks. Now I know the county has joined in the lawsuit. Originally on an early radio show, I was hesitant about the county joining in on that lawsuit for two reasons. One is because the National Park Service had asked for the case to be dismissed at that point, and that decision wasn't made. And the other part of it was I really hate spending money on legal issues. Very difficult to win legal issues in particular, and I was hoping that we could avoid that.
All right, Dominic?
Yeah, so the rancher issue to me is extremely important and close to me as a rancher. I have a lot of family who have ranches out there and want to make sure they have the opportunity to continue. And so I believe that the ranchers and the Park Service, the environmentalists, we're all standing together, and that's part of what the county needs to do. You know, as Dennis mentioned, these are national environmental organizations that are suing, but one of them, led by Huey Johnson, lives right here in Marin, and he is supporting Dennis. And so I would draw that distinction between us, that he's looking at Dennis as someone who might be able to lean his way. So I sometimes question Dennis's support a little bit, just how authentic it is with regards to the radio station, the interview he did somewhat recently, back in February, and other things that have happened in the past with regards to Drakes Bay Oyster Company. So those are concerns that I would have in terms of true, authentic support of the ranchers. Whereas I was very, very straightforward from the very beginning that I would be here to protect the ranchers and work with them. And as a county, the reason I believe we should intervene right from the beginning is because while it will cost some money in terms of legal action, I think it was doing the right thing for the long-term effects of Marin County. We look at the historical advantages of what the West Marin ranchers bring to Marin County. It's about 18% of our agriculture. So what they bring into this county is extremely important in my terms, in terms of tax revenue and jobs. It goes above and beyond what that legal counsel is going to cost us, but we need to work together, the legal counsel with the ranchers. They're looking to try to raise $750,000 right now. So it's a battle, and they're working on privately funding it and doing fundraisers. So our county being able to step in and help, I think, is extremely important.
Dominic, as a rancher, a dairy farmer, and coming from a ranching community and a rancher family, do you believe that history that you have of yourself, or the bias that may come with that, would be rise to a level where you'd have to recuse yourself from any supervisor decisions?
I'm not sure that it would, but that's where legal counsel would be able to tell me if I had to recuse myself or not. We'd have to follow the laws of the Brown Act. In addition to that, though, I can say that I would have no direct benefit to it because I don't actually lease any land out there. So I would think not, but again, I'd leave that up to legal counsel.
And Dennis, respond. He raised the issue of Huey Johnson.
Sure.
And Dick Spotswood in the IJ reported how you returned a $100 contribution from Johnson.
Yep.
What is his position, and does it influence you?
First of all, clearly his position doesn't influence me, but it's important to understand that ethically and morally I returned the $100 check because I didn't think I should use his money to support my campaign. Now, if he chooses to support me, I have no choice over that in particular, but I will say that being the only liberal Democrat who's supported by the Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, etc. in this race, it's clearly who he would support between the two of us. So that doesn't surprise me. But he's not active in my campaign. He's not even on my endorsement list. He's choosing to support me because of his political views, not his environmental views, I believe.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's more to District 4, however, than West Marin. In fact, I think the demographics is such that more folks in that district live in the Corte Madera, Western Nevada, the Canal area than out in Western Marin. What have you, Dominic, been doing to connect with those folks and listen and hear the concerns that they have? And what have you heard about their concerns?
Well, every area has very specific concerns, and so it's doing the legwork, getting out there, making the phone calls, meeting with community members, elected officials in all of the different towns that we're trying to represent, and listening to what their issues are. You know, whether it's in Corte Madera, there's the current concerns about sea level rise because of how close they are to the marsh out there. You have concerns about the Alto Tunnel, which we've all discussed offline a little bit. Over in San Rafael, concerns about homeless has become huge. Do we find a permanent structure, which I think at some point we as a county need to take a lead on this. We've allowed San Rafael to take the brunt of this situation. And they've done a fabulous job with their HOT team, and I think that's I should explain, the homeless outreach team. So there are good things, and they are working, bringing multiple organizations together. And I think the county could get involved there more so and help to coordinate and facilitate how that HOT team works, where we could put a facility. So those are important issues down here. I know up in Novato, there's lots of different little issues with regards to education, school funding, a school property that they want to do some stuff with, possible some affordable housing. And affordable housing, of course, is one of those giant issues that really encompasses all of Marin, both on the west side of the hill and as well as over on the east side. And so that's something we need to be sensitive to. We need to be looking for the right opportunity to create affordable living houses for people that provide important services here. Are we going to be able to build out of our traffic system? No, but we should be looking for opportunities where they exist, I think. And of course, as I just mentioned, traffic has been the number one issue collectively when we've gone around and talked to people. Everybody complains about traffic because you have tourism traffic out of West Marin. You've got the 101 corridor and the horrible traffic there. Trying to get across Sir Francis Drake to 580. We need to get that third lane opened over the bridge. So every aspect of this county has traffic issues. So it's just getting out there, doing the legwork, I think, and learning. And that's what I've been doing.
Dennis, what are you hearing? And before you say a word, I got to tell all three of you guys, I did see a yellow school bus dropping off kids at Edna McGuire School. This is huge.
Yes.
It is
So
huge.
it's huge, and I think it's working. There might have been a few mothers crying, but the kids look very, very, very happy.
We need to expand that.
So District 4, as you know, is very, very diverse geographically. It's all over the county, literally. And so being in touch with all the district is a very, very difficult job for the supervisor. I was fortunate enough, as Peter B. said earlier, to run in 2004, which allowed me to learn a little bit about the district then. And that helps me a little bit now when I'm going to the different areas. But talking to the people in the district, many of the issues are the same. The primary issue that I'm finding is they want to be thought of as a village. No matter what community you're in, it's a village. Corte Madera is a village. San Rafael is a village, and in its own scale, it is a village, and people are very protective of that, and they want local control. They want to control their local destiny, and I am a big supporter of local control, and I think that's important. Overriding issues certainly are housing and transportation, and traffic, certainly, and congestion of traffic in certain areas. But specifically, all the needs are different, and certainly when you get to San Rafael, they become much different because we have Bay Point and Spinnaker Point along with the canal that's in the district, and so the issues are very, very different there. But our lower class people and workers need to have a lot of protection and a lot of county services because they are many times being abused in the labor force, and they need to be protected from that. They need to be provided with county services, health and social services, so that they can actually live here and function as a family. And I think it's really, really important that a supervisor in the 4th District understands that. And having a Latino aide is certainly one of my goals. I don't know if David's willing to stay on. I told him.
Well, let's mention David Escobar
David
is a
Escobar.
remarkable asset to the county.
He is, yes, and the District 4, and you know, I've briefly talked with David about this, but I just thought it was too premature to even be talking about offering a job to someone before you get to that point. So
We'll tell him not to watch.
We appreciate your restraint.
Oddly enough, I just had lunch with David at a Novato Rotary function, and I did broach the topic with him. He may not be aware, has taken a job with Health and Human Services, but he's willing to continue the conversation with me. He said he might come back this way. So I have reached out and asked him already.
Great.
Because I think that's the history that he has and the knowledge, you know, and the connections. It's those relationships he's built, quite frankly, for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
You know, those are unbelievable. You just can't let those go.
Well, I think that kind of continuity is significant, and I'm
Very
glad
important.
voters are hearing
Yeah, I
about
agree.
this from each of you.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to exclude West Marin because the needs out there are just as unique, from the seniors, the poor seniors that exist in West Marin, to the poor workers in West Marin, including the farm workers in West Marin.
So the county is doing pretty good. It enjoys a AAA bond rating. Financial shape has been good. I think the supervisors generally have been good stewards for our community. However, the long term, the county has an obligation of over $500 million, which is unfunded for pension obligations and retiree health care. Do you think that the pension critics are exaggerating the risks that we face, and what will you do as a supervisor to address either the critics, the problem, or moving forward? Dominic, why don't you talk first?
Well, yeah, so I don't know that they're exaggerating the numbers. They find the numbers there. They're accurate numbers. The $243 million is what we have right now as a future obligation, based strictly on the pensions, not on the healthcare side of things. And those numbers come directly from Jeff Wickman, who's the retirement director here for MSERA. He manages all of that. So I don't think they're exaggerating the numbers at all. That being said, that's over the next 27 to 30 years, so how everything will actually turn out, we don't know. We're going to have to pay very close attention to how well we're doing with our investments, and if we have the investment capabilities, we'll probably slowly work our way out of it. I just think it's one of those things we have to be very, very cognizant of. We're not going to go back in time and change what's been given and offered. You know, I think maybe some mistakes were made back then, but those are now vested rights, and we need to be very aware that those were put in place for a specific reason, and that's to bring good employees to Marin County, especially when it comes to fire and police, our safety. So that was extremely important. You can't go back on that. To me, it's almost like a fraudulent, false advertising to hire someone if you try to change them.
But let me jump in for a second, because the pension critics have argued that the county board didn't properly manage the way that some of these increases were approved. And let me just ask you each in your answer to address, is a lesson learned from that, and going forward, will you make sure that we're in full compliance when these issues are brought
absolutely,
before
definitely. Transparency is extremely important, and there were mistakes made. It was in the grand jury report, and so they didn't notice the meetings properly. They didn't have the full discussions they should have been having. They didn't get the correct financial reports based off of current information. So there were a lot of mistakes made. And so lesson learned, absolutely. I mean, sadly, we should have never had to even experience that. They shouldn't have made those mistakes. They should have known that going in. Those aren't mistakes you should have even allowed yourself to make. So yeah, I want to make sure we have an open and transparent government, bring things to the table. When we have big reports that come out, even getting aside from pensions, I want to make sure that we give ample time for the public to see these. Anything over 100 pages, we should be giving 30 days, not 10 days. Because these reports, gone through the local coastal plan and the countywide plan, and they'd be 800 to 1,200 page documents at times, and they're giving you 10 days. You can't hire an entire legal crew for that. So it's inappropriate, and we need to give more time so that our community can be better engaged, better informed to help educate your politicians, your local leaders, so they can make the right decisions.
I think a lot of people are going to be happy that you honor prior commitments, though. I mean, that's important.
Yeah, that's something new. I haven't heard that from a candidate before, that he's honoring all the previous commitments.
I've always
thank
said,
you for saying that.
I've always said that we should
the
honor
important
their
thing about
vested rights.
the amount of money that we owe, it's a snapshot in time, and depending on investments performance for that year, it can grow great bounds, and certainly has this year, because it jumped from projected 240 or 50 to maybe 500 million, and that happens because of the snapshot for that 1 year. Over a long period, the thought is, and the investment choice is, that should all even out. And go back to 2004 and 5, there was zero liability at that point. It was fully funded, and then the crash hit and caused the downturn in all the markets and things, and investments fell off, a variety of things, and that's when the big hit took place. But in and out, that number will fluctuate. The important thing is that as a supervisor, we have to continually keep that number in mind and understand that it is a projection over a very long period of time. However, we have to pay the bill at some point, and our probably children and maybe grandchildren have to pay the bill at some point. So it's very important that we're continually monitor our investments, that we take realistic approaches to what the returns will be. And my business life has been, I tendency to project things on the low side rather than the high side. I much rather have additional money at the end of the day rather than be short on projections. And so for my opinion, the interest rate that they're figuring might be a little bit high and maybe needs to climb down a little bit to the 7% rate. And I think that might be more realistic. So there'll be those kind of talks that I'd like to have. But certainly I've all from the beginning been the candidate talking about being open and transparent. I from the beginning have been talking about not removing any previous commitments, or try to remove any previous commitments that we've made to labor and to contracts that we've had previously. I think some of the issues around the grand jury report have actually even been disputed, that whether they were actually accurate, whether those things happen. And I know there's other legal things going on, maneuvering amongst the CSPP and their people about what was actually legal and not. To the date, nothing's been proven illegal that this Board of Supervisors have done. Now, whether they had done a good job and done all their homework, that's a question that certainly can be asked. And it's up to us as supervisors to make sure that all that information comes forward, it is available, that we do our good judgment and our good diligence to study that stuff to make sure it is accurate, and use the county resources as much as we can to make sure it is accurate.
Let me ask you for a brief answer on this next one. And it's a complex issue, affordable housing. But fundamentally, the last few years, we've kind of been in a zero growth phase. And there are many people who want to stop any new construction, including affordable housing. Can you just briefly state, are you open to constructing new affordable housing in Marin? And briefly, what are the conditions that would
Sure.
lead you to approve that?
Sure. Definitely constructing new houses, new housing in Marin is important. The important guidelines that I would like to bring to the table, though, are that we need to not only focus on affordable levels, but we need to include workforce levels and also senior levels in that housing development, so that all those parties have some sort of adjustment for affordability, and they're not all the same level. What happens now is many of our county workers or people who are renting can't afford to move into the affordable housing because they're earning too much money, quite honestly. They can't fit that criteria. And so they, in essence, miss out on those projects. So we need to develop other opportunities by looking at more at workforce affordability and also senior affordability. Senior being one of the main issues that we're going to be facing in this county, because of the growing senior population. It's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure for smaller, safer homes for seniors. Many are cash rich in their homes, but they need a place to be able to shift to if they choose. because most of all, seniors want to remain in their homes for as long as they possibly can. And the big...
Let me just stop you there in the interest of time, Dominic.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the instance of a short answer, Dennis and I think, agree pretty wholeheartedly on this. I agree we need to have some affordable housing where we can do it in the right places, the right size. It's not a one-size-fits-all. The debacle that WinCup turned into wasn't even affordable housing for the most part, only about 10% of it. We need to find certain places where we can do some building, but he's right, we need housing, period. It doesn't just have to be affordable or workforce, but we need some market rate a little bit here and there. And the senior thing is extremely important. I know to Dennis and me as well. Walnut Place out in Point Reyes, they have a huge waiting list trying to get out there. But what's important is we have to provide opportunities, and I think that's something as a supervisor we need to be doing. Opportunities I want to present is really push forward the second units and the junior second units to give people an opportunity, maybe if they need to, as they get older, they can age in their home and have someone come in as a tenant that could help take care of them, whether they're paying them or even just rent it out for extra income. So we need to, I think, make those types of opportunities much more accessible. Novato and San Rafael have worked towards that already. They've worked closely with Rachel Guinness of Lily Pad Homes, and I think that what she's doing is remarkable. It's the right thing to do, and I think we as a county need to embrace that to make this easier to help people.
Mm-hmm. And Larry, let me interject a final question here, because we're seeing some differences surface and a little bit of elbow here today, and that's appropriate. This is a political campaign. But, this has been a very civil process so far. We're speaking here in early September, and the real campaign starts after Labor Day. Can I get each of you to agree to run a clean campaign with no mudslinging, no innuendos, no dirty mailers, and talk to the voters about what you stand for and not attempt to bring your opponent down?
Yeah, I would like to have a clean campaign. I mean, that being said, you do have to be able to differentiate yourself. Mm-hmm. And so pointing out differences or things that Dennis has said or that I have said in the past, with regards to, say, the Oyster Bay, Drake's Bay Oyster, that I think can be brought out. Mm-hmm. It's not mudslinging, it's pointing out things that were actually said. But yeah, keeping it clean, keeping it not personal,
mm-hmm.
But things that we've said, sure, I think our records speak for themselves, and we need to be able to talk to our records, but to differentiate between us. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to make this personal.
Okay.
Shouldn't.
And I think the issue is distinguishing between the two of us, and that's an important aspect of the campaign for sure. And I certainly do not want to turn nasty or negative. But certainly the campaigns dictate that sometime. And one of the things that I always promise to be is we'll be factual. We won't be lying about someone. We won't be making up someone. We won't be twisting the truth on anyone. And that's something I believe in strongly. But I think if there's a fact that's true about my opponent, we'll be glad to say it and verify it and make sure it's true.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're glad to hear that. We only have a few moments left. I think Peter and I both believe that local elections and local politicians have more of an effect on people here in Marin than the national scene. In about 10 seconds, you guys must be watching local politics for a while. Who here in the county has been a mentor or someone you'd like to emulate to on the local or state scene? Why don't you start, Dennis?
Well, certainly Jared Huffman is illustrated to be quite a gentleman and a politician and a proud Democrat, I might say. And I certainly am similar to him in following his footsteps in that we both served a long time on water districts doing local politics, and that's really important, I think. So.
Okay.
Yeah. And in terms of mentors, I look at the legacies of people who've done a lot of good work in this community, guys like Gary Giacomini, who've endorsed me, and Steve Kinsey, for that matter, as well. And I'm just really excited to move forward, and I know that I'm going to have the help of many other people that have, some that were part of this race and some that weren't, but who are helping my campaign. Wendy Cowlins, I was asked on election night if I would get any of Wendy Cowlins' supporters because she's so much more progressive. I've gotten a lot of her supporters so far, and I've also gotten her endorsement. So I think there's more than just one side to me, and I think people are going to get a chance to get to know me.
Dominic Grossi, Dennis Rodoni, best wishes to both of you. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.